record.
Welcome to M2Techcast, a live internet radio show offering the latest news and interviews with the people driving business, technology, and politics in Michigan. Now, your hosts, Matt Roush and Mike Brennan.
Hey, it's Matt Roush.
And Mike Brennan.
And we're back with another fun-filled episode of the M2Techcast. We've got a wide-ranging show for you today. We're going to have a visit a little later from Fred Brown, our favorite epidemiologist, and Dr. Doom, as I call him. But we're going to start things off with a little bit more positive news about the redevelopment of a longtime vacant property with a storied history in suburban Detroit. So, Gary Roberts, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience here?
Yes, so thank you, Matt and Mike. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'm Gary Roberts, and I'm the planner for the MITC, which is the Michigan International Technology Center Redevelopment Authority, which is governed jointly by Plymouth Township and Northville Township.
Okay, and tell us a little bit about the MITC property, its history, and what's being planned for it now.
Well, its history is very interesting. And the reason that this property has remained vacant in the face of what is otherwise a very prosperous neighborhood is because it's been under government and institutional control now for, except for the last couple of years, the prior 120 or so. In the early 1900s, if you were a bad guy in the city of Detroit, you were sent to a work camp, and it was called DeHoco, Detroit House of Corrections. And actually, east of Ridge Road, south of 5 Mile, there was a camp set up. But the work part of the work camp was that they had almost 800 acres of land that was available for farming and livestock. And so when the work that you did, if you were stationed, so to speak, at the work camp, was to go out in the fields and work all this stuff to create food and other things for the people of the city of Detroit. That's just how it went. It later went, and parts of it went to the state corrections for the Scott Women's Facility, and then the Detroit House of Corrections evolved from a camp to an actual prison-like building where they held more tougher criminals for a long time. That was closed in the 70s. The state took it over and ran it for a little while longer into the mid 80s, and then shut the whole thing down. And so it's just sat vacant for a long time, and it was sort of paralyzed in the corrections world because they didn't really have a property disposition section. So the Michigan Land Bank enters the scene, who is responsible to dispose of surplus state properties and challenged properties, and they kind of got the ball rolling. The Michigan Land Bank, a guy by the name of Jim Tischler, has overseen the transition. Years ago, the properties were split up. Northville Township, very wisely, almost 15 years ago or so, purchased a bunch of the property directly from the city of Detroit in the name of future economic development. Similarly, Plymouth Township has a parcel. In fact, the city of Detroit still has one large parcel of it. So that's why it sat for a long time. Then the market sort of caught up with it. The demand was there. There are very few sites left along the M14 corridor for new high-tech research and development kinds of construction. They've been very successful in both communities attracting those, and so the need, or the demand, if you will, catches up with the property, and now we've got new development finally.
Why don't we describe what the new development is? I know you had your ribbon cutting last week. I was invited to that, but I was just coming back from a vacation, so I didn't get a chance to get out there. So talk about what's available right now and what are you doing moving forward?
Well, the first property to develop was actually a Chinese firm called Zhongding. They've built an R&D center right on 5 Mile in the first piece within our zone to do so, and they have moved into their building, and it's a beautiful facility. What the groundbreaking last week was really a milestone for us, because it's the first time we've been able to take one of these larger parcels. This was a 130-acre gross parcel, and attract a world-class developer who would come in and put in a road and an infrastructure and subdivide the property for smaller construction. And they have sites that will be suitable for 15 to 200,000 square foot facilities, which is exactly in the target market that we're after.
Right, and I know that area is really prime for light manufacturing R&D. When you drive along M14 west of 275, that's all you see, for several miles out M14, and this property is just north of there, right?
Right, it's just north of there, and you're exactly right, Matt. The area has lent itself primarily to transportation-oriented engineering firms. And if you're in the business, you know a lot of those names like ZF and Brembo Brakes and Adient. Those kinds of guys. Right, they're all there. So and that's been successful. The synergy of that was sort of a self-propelled thing until we ran out of sites to put any more.
Yeah.
So is that your anticipation then going forward? It was described as you're hoping to get high-tech companies. Would that be, since there's so much auto-related stuff in and around the Ann Arbor area, and of course in that particular area that we're talking about, do you anticipate that's what you're going to get, is more auto-related stuff?
Yeah, there's nothing exclusive about that, but that seems to be the synergy that we have. There are sort of three nodes for that in our metro market. There's Ann Arbor itself, there's the M14 corridor, and then there's Auburn Hills. So there are three sort of sub-markets that have lent itself to those kind of guys, and we fit right in the middle of there nicely.
And is the fact that the U of M is right there and a lot of research comes out of the U of M, does this play into that? Is that what is attracting some of these companies, or what?
I think so. I think the University of Michigan has a great synergistic effect for this kind of user, as does things like location to the airport, the ability to get downtown fairly quickly. A lot of these companies are internationally headquartered. And so there's a great emphasis on travel and ease of travel and getting to us. So that plays into it as well.
And then go ahead, Matt.
I was just curious, does this parcel include the former regional psychiatric hospital that was out there?
No, that's actually up on 7 Mile.
Oh, okay.
That is in Northville Township as well. You're right. And that is the remaining piece of it is dedicated for parkland. The front half of that has already been sold to the Showstack firm, who's developing commercial there.
All right, so you had your ribbon cutting. You've got our companies sort of nibbling around the edges, taking a look at this now, because part of it would be there would be some really great places for their employees to buy houses or get a condo or an apartment or something in that sort of area around there, right? I mean, so it would be, not only could they have their facilities there, but their employees could be close by, right?
Right. There are two big drivers when it comes to the more of the personal side of it. One is that quality of life and quality of residential opportunities in school districts and all of those things. And certainly Northville Township and Plymouth Township have really a good range of product for people to live in. And the number of graduate engineers in proximity is also a very important piece that people look at. And we seem to have a high concentration of automotive related guys that live in and around that area. So that's certainly part of it.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, my former excuse me, my former employer, the Engineering Society of Detroit, is fond of saying that the Detroit area has more engineers per capita than any place else on earth. So there's plenty of talent, around.
Right. And I think that's, that just generally, that's why a lot of these international firms, and they're, Asian and European and everywhere, focus on us because of that. I think there's some comfort in the synergy of seeing the success of all these related type firms around you, and then add that to the electric vehicle thing that's going on in Ann Arbor. This is really cutting edge stuff, and we have some great new facilities either in process or there now. Rivian, for example, is in headquartered in Plymouth Township.
Right.
Great stuff coming out of there.
Yeah, this area is not very far from U of M North Campus, where all the Center for Automotive Research is there, and you have got a lot of various other transportation-related activities in North Campus. Gosh, that can't be more than a 10-minute drive from where this is, right?
Well, that's what we say. It's 10 minutes if you're moving pretty good, but yeah, 10, 15 minutes.
Well, if I'm driving it, it's 10 minutes,
Well, not during rush hour on US 23 now. Come on, let's be realistic here. But yeah, you've got M-City, which is the University of Michigan's connected and autonomous vehicle proving ground. You've got the American Center for Mobility at the former Willow Run site that's near there too.
Yeah.
So,
true.
I mean, the opportunities for R&D there are spectacular.
Yeah, that's our story. We think proximity, being there a little bit, sort of east of Ann Arbor, opens up access to both the big three headquarters, as well as not that far to the Toyota Center. So everything seemed to fall together for us in location wise. We just need to get this next phase moving so we can entertain these platforms to get new stuff built.
And like you say, you can just shoot down 275 and you're at Metro Airport. Boom, you're out of there, right? So
yeah, we use 20 minutes for that one, but that's
20 minutes. Okay, all right, good.
That's our story.
All right.
Okay.
So are you worried at all about the increase in remote work that we've seen in the pandemic, perhaps slowing this down, or what's your stand on that?
If this was a pure office market, sort of like Troy is, and even Southfield to some extent, where you have a high concentration of purely office workers, I think that absorption is slowing. In our situation, these buildings have laboratories and specialized equipment and dynamometers and things that you just aren't going to find in an office context, and you're not going to certainly find it in your home office. So
yeah, it's kind of hard to work on a four-wheel dyno at home, right? Yeah,
that's right, and that's right, and that's exactly the kind of buildings that we're building. And so I don't see too many people saying, gee, I wish we were working more from home because they can't. I'm sure to some extent, some can and do, but largely the tech side of it requires the facility.
All right, we got about a minute left. So why don't you provide the information that anybody interested in learning more about this development, how they can reach out to you and other folks?
Well, Mike, thanks for asking that one. We just, in the time of the groundbreaking ceremony, we also launched our brand new website, which is mitc-usa.org. And that has a connection to all the properties, diagrams, and contact information that you could ever want.
Okay.
Oh, very nice. I just looked it up. That's a very pretty website. So congratulations on that.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
All right. Once again, that's mitc-usa.org for more information on the Michigan International Technology Center in Plymouth and Northville Townships. Thanks for being with us today, Gary.
Gentlemen, thank you for having me.
All right. We'll be right back in a minute with another segment of the M2Techcast. For right now, this is Matt Roush.
And Mike Brennan.
And you're watching mitechnews.tv.
I don't hear the music. Dave?
Did we lose David?
I don't know.
Well, right now,
you're going to lose me, so I'll sign off.
All right. Well, thanks very
All
much.
right, thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Lawrence Technological
there we
University
go.
earn a degree and a higher starting salary.
Well, we'll fix
in
that
fact,
in
when
post,
it comes
right?
to earning potential, the Brookings
edit that
Institution
part out.
ranks LTU 5th.
Guys, we're a little early.
Colleges
Caught me
and
off guard.
universities.
Sorry.
Be more. At LTU, possible is everything.
Oh, that's right. We were.
Salaries of
How are you, Commissioner Phillips?
are among the highest of any university in
Stand
America.
by. We're about
Contact
46
Precision
seconds
to
out.
meet with counselors,
I can talk here
faculty,
today.
and coaches. Why wait? Find out more at ltu.edu.
What do you get at Lawrence Technological University? Everything. Great labs and studios, supportive professors, plus a full campus life, NAIA athletics, and all the software you need to succeed. Be smart. Be more. At LTU, possible is everything.
Salaries of Lawrence Tech grads are among the highest of any university in America. Plan a campus visit to meet with counselors, faculty, and coaches. Why wait? Find out more at ltu.edu.
Hey, it's Matt Roush.
And Mike Brennan.
And we're back with the second segment today of the M2 Techcast. Mike, why don't you introduce our next guest?
Yeah, we have the Michigan Public Service Commission Commissioner, Tremaine Phillips. How you doing today?
Good afternoon. Hanging in there like the rest of us here.
All right, good. Now, one of the things that caught my attention, I think it was last week, I get about 500 emails a day, so sometimes I lose track of when I got them. But one of the things we like to cover on this show is there's also a lot of cyber scams and other kinds of scams out there, unfortunately. And apparently now there's these utility scams going on. And why don't you talk a little bit about what's happening with that?
Yeah, well, first, as a little bit of background, I am a commissioner at the Michigan Public Service Commission. We're the principal agency for regulating the electricity, natural gas, and telecommunications industries. And in that capacity, we are tasked with ensuring that Michigan residents have access to safe and reliable electricity, natural gas, and telecommunication services. So again, as a part of that role, certainly educating customers on how they can protect themselves from utility scams is really integral. And utility scams have always been around, but what we certainly see is that, one, they pick up during the holidays, and they've also picked up during the pandemic. And whether that is because more people are at home, we're all on our laptops or cell phones, so there's more of an opportunity for scammers to have access to us and to our personal information, or it's because we are going through this cycle of customers just having more contact with their utility because of the economic and other circumstances of the pandemic. It's creating an opening for utility scammers to be more innovative, unfortunately, and find more opportunities to put customers at risk.
So are more of these scams coming over the phone or online, or is it a combination of both?
It really is not only through email and by telephone, but we're also seeing some scams take place door to door.
Really?
Person. And then also my father just, it wasn't a utility scam, but it was a prepaid gift card scam. Was contacted through Facebook Messenger. So social media is certainly another pathway that this is happening. So, what we really want to ensure, no matter where those avenues a scammer is coming into contact with a customer, we just want to make sure that customers are aware of the situation that they're in. If they know that they're not behind on their utility bills, but a scammer is calling them on via their telephone and saying otherwise, certainly don't be pressured into anything. To if you face a situation where it does not feel like it makes sense or it's uncomfortable, contact your utility, ask for identification and other ID information of that individual, and just be more suspect about what the information that they may be asking for or requiring.
And reading your press release, it seems like the scam is they call you up and say, hey, if you don't give us your credit card information right now, we're going to cut off your service in some way or something along those lines, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Again, because of the economic situation that unfortunately the pandemic has put a number of customers throughout the state and throughout the country in, as the utilities begin to resume more near normal utility shutoff practices, it again gives that opening for these scammers to come in and to try and use some of these more forceful or coercive tactics. But the utilities would never call you and say, if you do not pay prepaid credit card or buy Bitcoin in some circumstances.
Oh yeah, that's a dead giveaway if they say Bitcoin,
a dead giveaway,
right?
there.
Yeah.
The utilities will never do that. And certainly during this time period, what we've seen from the utilities is they're actually being very understanding in terms of offering pathways for payment plans. There is customer utility bill forgiveness programs. There are a number of different opportunities that the utilities are putting forth to help customers during this challenging time. So, we're seeing certainly the opposite in terms of what the practices the electricity and natural gas utilities are employing to assist customers during this time.
Yeah, my personal favorite is when they ask for gift cards. That's, as far as I know, DTE does not take, Amazon gift cards.
Or Bitcoin. If they ask for Bitcoin,
Right.
ding, 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 the bell should be going off.
At least
right?
not yet. Maybe in another decade or so, but that's
Yeah.
not the payment arrangements they have thus far. But again, because there is just so much more interaction happening between the customer and utilities during this time period, just the utilities are putting out a lot more information about how to assist customers, whether it's through energy efficiency, payment plans, or other means. It does create this open for this confusion. And so please, feel free to contact your utility or to go to the Michigan Public Service Commission website. And we have plenty of information on how to best avoid some of these more, frequent utility scams.
Could we talk a little bit about, I know I've seen a number of press releases come across the transom about what you guys are doing to help folks that are, because right now, we're, the plan that the feds were going to give us to extend out helping hand financially is stalled because of the elections. It may or may not reappear until January. A lot of people are in desperate situation, and I know that the MPSC has a lot of things going on right now to help people. Let's go into a little more depth on that.
Yes, certainly, because this is an important part of this equation as well. The commission has really been focused on this effort and on the impacts of the pandemic ever since I remember we started asking questions on what the possible impact could be in late February, but certainly have been focused on this since mid-March when the initial stay-at-home orders were issued. And so, one of the primary things that we did was bring together state agencies, our state utilities, and the commission staff, and try and figure out first, what is the best way to increase eligibility, to reduce challenges and pathways for customers to access energy assistance. So customers right now can access energy assistance, state emergency relief from the Department of Human Health Services. They can also access energy assistance and other means of assistance through their local utility. So, the first thing I would say is to contact your local utility, contact DHHS, and look for those energy assistance pathways. And then the other thing other possibility that is available there as well is, looking for opportunities to reduce your energy bill. All of the utilities across the state have energy waste reduction or energy efficiency programs. So not only are there opportunities for customers to receive direct energy assistance, but there's also opportunities for customers to opt into programs that allow them over the long term, whether we're in a pandemic or not, to reduce their electricity bill and again, save energy over the long term.
So if you are afraid you have fallen for one of these scams and you are afraid you have released personal information to someone who's going to do something bad with it, what can you do? What should you do?
Well, the first thing that we ask for customers to do, even if you haven't fallen for one of those scams and you've just been contacted door to door or by phone or otherwise, is to contact any utilities that scam tried to claim that they were being. One of the scams that we're seeing right now is that particularly by telephone, some scammers are using spoofing. So the caller ID on your cell phone may actually show up from the utility that they're trying to claim as calling from. So again, it's a cat and mouse game. They're continuing to advance as we set up protections for customers. So contact your utility company, make sure to inform them about that. That'll not only protect you, but that'll help to get this information out and to protect other customers as well. And then also, if you have fallen for one of these scams, you should contact your bank. You should contact also the Attorney General's office, because they have a consumer protection division, and they could move forward with criminal actions if necessary.
What about, I don't think these are scams, but I'm always a little concerned about it. There's some independent operators that want to sell you gas programs and contracts, things like that. I'm not saying they're scams, but should people be wary of those?
Well, no, certainly we allow for independent gas utilities to be able to sell you their services here in the state of Michigan. What I would suggest is on the Michigan Public Service Commission's website, we have a page there that clearly lays out all of the companies who are operating in the private sector that are allowed and are regulated in order to sell those gas services here in the state. I think with any of these things, as you are approached, because many of those natural gas providers do approach customers door to door, ask questions, and just ensure that the individual who's coming to your door and asking you that information is who they say they are, and is not trying to pressure you into getting into those agreements or to submit any forms of payment. And I think this is especially important for senior customers and those customers who may be new immigrants or may not have English as their first language, and again, could create some challenges or opportunities for scams there.
Okay. If you're afraid, I mean, should you also contact local police, if you've fallen for one of these, or if you're afraid you have?
Certainly, if you have fallen for one of these scams or have experienced some of these more coercive tactics, especially if they are done door to door, we do encourage you to call the local police department and report that issue as well.
Yeah, I've had some of those people come to my door, and they're particularly aggressive. So I'm not much on anybody coming to my door trying to sell me anything, particularly during the political season, right? But I mean, yeah, they are pretty aggressive.
Yes. We certainly, if those tactics are seen as too aggressive or too coercive, customers do have the ability to file a complaint with the commission. And again, our website is michigan.gov/MPSC. But what we're really talking about here today are those individuals, those organizations who are either trying to pose themselves as a electric or natural gas utility, or just trying to use, again, some other means to get individuals' personal identification information or have them hand over credit card or other payment information.
We have about a minute left, so why don't you give those addresses one more time? If you think someone is trying to victimize you with these scams, who do they contact? How do they reach them?
Yeah, the first thing to do is, again, contact your utility company, and you can contact them by phone. It should be right there on utility bill. If you have unfortunately fallen for one of these scams, you can contact the Attorney General's Consumer Protection Division. And then finally, for more information, they can happily go to michigan.gov/MPSC. That'll take them to our website, which has consumer protection information, as well as information on energy assistance and other forms of assistance and services they can access during this really challenging time.
Okay. Once again, Tremaine Phillips, a member of the Michigan Public Service Commission, which regulates electric, natural gas, and telecommunications companies and utilities in the state of Michigan. Once again, that's michigan.gov/MPSC. Tremaine, thanks for being with us today.
Hey, thank you so much. And thank you for taking time to talk about this really important topic.
Our pleasure.
Well, we'll be back in just a minute with another segment of the M2Techcast. For right now, it's Matt Roush.
And Mike Brennan.
And you're watching mitechnews.tv.
All right, thanks for maybe we'll get to that in before after the show.
A higher starting salary.
All right, that sounds good. Thank you.
Potential. The Brookings Institution ranks on U.S. colleges and universities. Be enriched. Be more. At LTU, possible is everything.
Salaries of Lawrence Tech grads are among the highest of any university in America. Plan a campus visit to meet with counselors, faculty, and coaches. Why wait? Find out more at ltu.edu.
As a Lawrence Technological University graduate, you're not only marketable, you're worth more. Yes, more. According to payscale.com, when it comes to graduate salaries, LTU is in America's top 100. Be invaluable. Be more. At LTU, possible is everything.
Hi guys,
Salaries
how's everything
of
going?
Tech grads are among the highest of
Hang
any
it in there.
university in
Can't wait for
America.
the election
Plan a
to be over.
campus visit to meet with
Yeah, some
counselors,
political
faculty,
out,
and
you know.
coaches.
I have a little update for you
Find
guys.
out more at ltu.edu.
Hey, it's
And we're
Matt
back.
Roush.
Yes, there we go. Okay, you start,
Okay.
Matt.
Okay, it's Matt Roush.
And Mike Brennan.
And we're back with another segment of the M2Techcast. We have cleared the second half hour of the show today for an in-depth report on the latest in the coronavirus pandemic from our favorite epidemiologist, Fred Brown of Birmingham. Fred, welcome back to the show for another week. We've seen significant spikes in both the national numbers and in Michigan numbers. And I keep reading now about how this thing is spreading into the least populated parts of the country, which was the last place it had to spread into.
And also impacting our political figures as they move around the country, but we won't go into the politics of it. So,
well, yeah,
Oh,
Mike
boy.
Pence's office and the political rallies. Okay, sure. All right.
okay, yeah. So, what's your take on what's happening, Fred?
Well, sadly, we're not in control of the virus. And that's just been the case for a number of months now. And we've talked about that a few times, as the fact that we'd had a few bursts here and there with New York and Texas and California, but that fundamentally the trend is going up. And now we're getting to a point where it's endemic throughout the United States. So there are no real safe areas to go. And so if you're thinking that, you can be up north or be in Montana and avoid the virus, in fact, it's just as dangerous there as it is in our inner cities today.
Yeah, even the UP is reporting a very bad situation up there. And you wouldn't think that because it's so sparsely populated, right?
Yeah, no, it's true. And the challenge with when you get to more sparsely populated areas is their health systems are a lot are actually not as robust as the ones in the inner city. So the further you get away from, the inner cities where they do have ICUs, they do have a lot of ventilator support, they have, people who are ready to be able to separate the COVID patients, from the other patients. That's one of the big problems we have in the countryside, is that if you're in a 25-bed hospital out in the country, it's very hard to create a separate ward just for and isolate the COVID patients. And then, spreading among the patients in those places. So it's important that if you do have COVID and you've got bad symptoms, to try to get yourself to a teaching hospital or to a centered hospital that can really help you rapidly.
Yeah, I guess it's one advantage of living here in Ann Arbor is we've got more medical than you can shake a stick at here, right? So
yeah, Ann Arbor's not a bad place to be. If you want to make
Yeah,
if you want to be in a place,
between U of M and St. Joe's, man, I'll tell you. Yeah, right, excellent. Yeah.
We have very we're fortunate.
And yet, Fred, I'm still seeing comments on social media. That's always somebody like, well, my sister-in-law's a nurse at Beaumont and she says it's a ghost town. So where are all these cases that they're talking about? So what do you say to something like that?
Yeah, it's so there's some parts of the country that are completely overwhelmed. I mean, if you're in parts of Florida, if you're in parts of South Dakota, if you're in parts of the cities that are especially the groups that are the states that are really taking off fast, there you'll see overwhelming conditions. So in South Dakota, they're actually having to bus people to Montana. It's that bad, so you don't want to be in that situation. And it's a good thing that it's a ghost town. What they've done is they've actually isolated entire floors at Beaumont, for example, and made those available just to COVID patients. And so what happens is, you're sitting there going, gosh, we got a lot of other patients. Why do we have all these separate beds? And that's because the COVID patients take a long time to heal. We're talking about a length of stay that can be 4 or 5, 15 days, 20 days. Some people are in the hospital 60 days. And so you don't want to be caught, having to care for those patients and having to move those patients if you haven't isolated. And so there are probably parts of Beaumont and I can imagine there are probably parts of larger hospitals that have gotten prepared and then are saying, gosh, we've got this extra capacity, can't we use it? And the answer is, well, you're taking a chance because we're going to have an uptick and you're going to have a lot of patients staying for a long time.
Yeah, and then of course we're moving into flu season, so we got the 1-2 punch coming up. The other thing that I wanted to point out that we talked about this previously, and I'm glad that I did my flying a couple of weeks ago or a week ago.
Yeah, congratulations!
Because on November 1st, all these airlines are going to start filling that center seat in the aisles, and you're going to be shoulder to shoulder with everybody if you're flying somewhere for the holidays. Well, I can only imagine, right? Geez.
Yeah, you're taking a chance. There's no doubt about it. And the more distance you're able to maintain, the better you are. So maybe start flying first class if you can. I know it's super expensive, but if you're in if you're got a compromised situation, or you're a compromised patient, I'd recommend probably driving. Interestingly, there's sort of a big business going on with renting mobile homes. So, if you need to go across the country and you want to see the family, bring the whole family with you, you rent the mobile home and you got your whole hotel there, you got everything you need to have, and you drive to, your aunt's, and you're pretty well sequestered that way all the way through the process versus flying out. And then maybe see a little bit of the country, why not?
Yeah, because you have to also wonder about motels, hotels, who's been in that bed the night before and how clean is it, kind of thing. Yeah, that's actually, I hadn't thought of that. That's actually a great way to maybe do that. So,
yeah, we went and visited. We had a socially distanced 80th birthday party for my father-in-law 2 weekends ago in Benzie County near Traverse City. And it was held in a 40 by 60 foot pole barn with the garage doors open. Thank God it was warm enough that we were able to do that.
It's getting cooler now. Yeah.
Yeah. And everybody was in masks, but what really scared me was the hotel room. But we just brought, Lysol and wipes with us and sanitized the hell out of everything, when we got there, and did it a couple more times while we were staying there. Plus it had a window that opened, which was nice.
That's great.
So you weren't sleeping in one of those bunny suit kind of things, like,
no.
All right, good.
I did bring my own pillow though. I will tell you that.
Yeah, bring your own pillow. Absolutely. You have those little silk bags you can slip into if you want to, and you sit on top of the bed. But trick on wiping those things down is to actually get those spray bottles and really soak the surfaces if you can. Those high surfaces, especially the clicker of the TV, the on-off switches of for light switches, all those areas are and the toilets. You want to make sure you probably ventilate as much as you can with a fan and flush.
Yeah, we left the fan on the whole time, and the only problem with leaving the window open was it didn't have a screen, so we had about 9 million ladybugs in the room when we got back. But other than that, so because this time of year they're looking for someplace warm, right? So
Well, it is the season. It is the election season, and I did put something together a few months ago, actually, and I sent it out to both campaigns. I sent it out to the Trump campaign, and I sent it out to at that point Biden hadn't even been selected yet. But I thought I'd show you what I thought were the important things to focus upon. I showed you a little bit about the map that we showed and how to where to try to influence the vote based on COVID policy,
Right.
and that was beneficial to both parties. But my interest is in trying to save lives with improved policy, and so I wanted to show you what I put together a little while ago, and that it has now been picked up by a number of groups, because I was working, as you know, with both Republican and Democratic states, and the Republican and the Democratic governors were saying, it'd be very helpful to have this talked about at a higher level. So this is what I put together. If it's of interest, I can show it to you quick.
Sure, yeah.
Sure.
All right.
Everything you've ever shown us so far has been of interest, so I'm assuming that's going to continue. So go right ahead.
Let me put this onto a slideshow, because I don't want to show you too much of it, because it's actually a very large discussion that a number of people put together. But I thought it was interesting. So basically, this is back a while ago, and I sent this to both campaigns. So I was interested in improved healthcare, and I said, in my experience, the way that we're currently going after COVID it's going to be is going to result in a challenging situation in the fall. And sure enough, here we are. And I said, in my experience, you can't really control a virus like COVID that's going across the country and spreading like it is with an uncoordinated policy at the national level. Because if you try to do that, what's happened is that everything devolves back to the states, devolves back to municipalities, devolves back to individuals who then, are responsible for making a decision. And the problem is they'll make individual decisions that might optimize it for themselves, but then when you put it all together, all those decisions start to counteract each other. So we have a whole bunch of states that are, doing one thing, going one direction, a whole bunch of states are going another direction, and they're counteracting what each other are doing. And that's what we're seeing, sadly, in a number of areas in the United States. And so I think I thought there were 7 transitions that were required. The first one is you have an overall US strategy so that things are fitting into one system. People are communicated to consistently across the whole country. So you're not getting spatters of misunderstanding and confusion all over the country, which I think we were having. And we still have to a large extent because there's so much data now that's starting to come out. And the other thing you want to have is a standards program that attaches itself to the strategy so that you can't have, in one state I'm working with, they have, our positivity rate, when it gets over 10%, we want to raise the flag. I work with another state that says once the positivity rate gets over 2%, I want to raise the flag. Well, that's a big difference in terms. Well, it's a 5-fold difference in the trigger that you're using, and so and those states happen to be right next door to each other, with a big city in between them, and they're having a lot of trouble. In one part of the city, where people are driving across and they're infecting the other part of the city, and so it's on one state and the other state, and it's a big town. So you want to have an objective scorecard that measures and monitors the state programs, coherent, accurate, is timely. One of the big problems having these data sets come through the states, and it takes this. What happens is, I don't know if you know those curves that we put together at Johns Hopkins, but we have to use 7-day averages. So you see these little spikes all over the place. That has nothing to do with real rates. That has to do with the data that's dumped in, right? So we have to smooth out that curve so that the spikes don't get confusing. Because it turns out that Massachusetts will dump everything on a Saturday morning, their entire last week of work, and now suddenly you got a huge spike in Saturday. Well, that didn't happen on Saturday; it happened the whole week. But so that's why we're using a 7-day average. Some states are quite good. Actually, Massachusetts is quite good, and it actually deposits every day. But there are other states that do. You wait a week every Saturday morning, all of a sudden, boom, you get a hit, and it's very hard to do our models that way, and so on. But at any rate, we don't have timely metrics, so we can't intervene consistently with what's going on the ground. And the other problem is we don't communicate very consistently either. So everyone's sort of wondering what the right levels are, what to do next, what does that mean? And so that's the first thing I thought was missing. And I've worked with a lot of countries, and all the countries that have been successful have had a national strategy. And and some of these are really strong dictators. Others are huge democracies like India. Others are dictator states in Africa, but they always had someone on top of this that was watching everything that was going on, usually military, actually. So that's what was missing in the United States, and I was concerned about it. So that's one big thing that I pushed early on. The second.
All right. Go ahead, Fred.
Well, keep going. If you have questions, feel free. But the second big thing I was concerned about was the rationing. We are the United States of America. We pay more for our healthcare than anybody else in the world. We have some of the best healthcare in the world, period. And we're rationing masks, pieces of paper that we can't seem to get paper and elastic straps around the back of the head for every person in the country. We were able to, down the street in Willow Run, we were able to manufacture a B-52 every 62 minutes or something, right? In the middle of World War II. What is going on? This is crazy. We can't get enough spray bottles. What? I work with guys all the time who are constrained on their wipes. They can't get the wipes to come through. They can get the chemical. They can't get the wipes to put in because, apparently there are 2 contracts that run the whole thing in the next 2 years, and no one had planned for any additional capacity. So all these things, the rationing of PPE has really been a problem. And you don't really notice it because everyone says, well, I don't really need the mask but you do need the mask. Trust me. If you had better PPE, there's a huge difference. And if in the studies that we've conducted, if you wear a cloth mask, your effective your effective stoppage of the virus is about 83%. Right? So 17% of it's going to get by. So you're going to have a 17% attack rate after 15 minutes. If you're wearing a surgical mask, that number drops to about 5%. If you're wearing if you're wearing, a really N95 well-fitted mask, you're talking about, fractions of a percent. The technology makes a huge difference, and the fact that we don't have the best technology for every American out there, and especially the healthcare workers who are now reusing their masks, and that's just unacceptable. And we got 2 companies that basically manufacture all of our masks, and they're sitting fat and happy, but it's killing us. And we have to we really have to start to use the Defense Production Act to tell people like Procter and Gamble, tell people like Kimberly-Clark, who manufacture Pampers every day at this volume, to say, hey, can you start manufacturing some of these masks? Right now, it's 3M and Honeywell that do all of our mass production, and they're small potatoes in the overall scheme of things compared to others countries who are better at this than we are. So the fact that that's the next big thing, the rationing part has to stop.
Well, the other thing now is masks have become political. Unfortunately, one party says wear a mask and the other party says don't. So, I mean, it's a mess.
Well, they haven't said don't, but they haven't been consistent, and that's and communication is important here. And they've said, do what you think is right. And we recommend masks, and please watch the CDC, what they have to say. So, they're not quite, at any rate, we just need to get more masks out there. Let's just, that's that much we can agree on. Then we have the insufficient testing, right? We are not testing enough, period, because we're not testing any of the asymptomatic. That's 40% out there. So we can't localize the enemy, right? We can't say, a COVID virus is at X% in this neighborhood. We have no idea what the COVID virus is because we're not measuring the asymptomatics. And what you really need to do is you want to test almost everybody who's mobile almost every day, like they do at the White House. You come into the White House, you're going to get a test. And the same thing should be true at your business. Same thing should be true ultimately at your home, so you know what your status really is. And those tests are available, but the FDA doesn't have EUA available for those. They don't have an emergency use authorization available for a home test. They seem to think somehow that the 1,500 or so central labs are somehow going to take care of conducting 40 times the number of tests that they're currently able to conduct. I mean, that's crazy. It's not going to happen. So you actually have to stand up and say, we're going to test every American. Here are your home tests. Start conducting these tests at home and let us know what the answer is, so we know where this virus is and we can go after it. So that's a big piece. And then we're not quarantining at all. And of course, we're so overwhelmed with the number of people who have this thing that we can't do bucketing tests. So sometimes if you get overwhelmed, you can start to collectivize the test. Well, we've got such a high percentage of test positives, we can't do that because it's not efficient as it turns out. And we also can't trace very effectively, because if you have to trace back 2 or 3 generations of contact, and you're talking about 10, 15% positivity rates, almost everybody you talk to is going to say, oh yeah, I've already got the disease. In fact, please contact 30 more people that I may have contacted because I've been under, because I feel under the weather right now. And then you just can't get your control over it. So it's so overwhelming that you just have to test everybody now. You can't screw around with test and track and this and that. It's hard to set up because it's just too late. And then, of course, we have vaccines for America. And we've done a really good job with vaccines and a lot of very good jobs with accelerating medicines. Some of these things have gone faster than I ever dreamed. And it's been remarkable how much these kind of guys have come together. The issue is that we pissed off almost the entire world as a result of the way we did this, because we came in and we said, it's America first, and we're only going to do American vaccines. And so we were stuck with basically the technologies that we had in our American companies. And so that was about 10 big bets that we placed, and they're great companies, but there are 179, people, different vaccines in production. And chances are one of those 179 is probably going to be better than one of the tests that we just happened to be in Pfizer's warehouse, right? And so I shouldn't pick on Pfizer. It was all the big manufacturers that we had, and so we should rejoin the WHO, because otherwise we're not going to be able to test for the future vaccine, right? As soon as you're Pfizer, you say, I've got my test validated and I got it authorized and it's licensed. Thank you very much. I'll just focus on my vaccine, And I know that that one down the street is maybe 7 or 8% better, but it's not really in my interest to see that this little company in Germany or wherever gets my market. So they're going to start protecting their market. It's going to be hard for these new little companies to get in, and we'll be stuck with a first generation vaccine that might not be that great unless we rejoin the global community and start to test all these vaccines side by side, comparator to comparator. Because right now the Pfizer tests are different from the Moderna tests. They're using different endpoints. They're using different clinical methodologies, and that's hard to compare apples to apples when you got that. Well, WHO is designed to do that. It actually looks at this test versus that test versus that and picks the best one, period. And of course, then we're using global populations and we can go a lot faster where you have the outbreaks. We may not be in an outbreak, and once we test, pass the first vaccine, you're not going to want to go to into a clinical trial where you only get a 50-50 chance of getting a vaccine when one's available out there. So, once we're done with our first test, our first vaccine, excuse me, we're sort of stuck with that generation of vaccine for a long time. Unless you're able to, to get back into the global community. So we have to do that quick. And then, of course, we have to start to trust some of the politicians. Well, not the politicians. I wouldn't trust what you hear on TV from politicians. Basically, they've all got agendas. I wouldn't trust what you hear from business people much on the TV. I do think that the healthcare, the people who have devoted their lives to public health, devoted their lives to epidemiology, have a PhD and advanced degrees in the space, they generally are pretty objective these days. I haven't seen many people who are off the page in terms of what should be done. Everyone's pretty consistent. If you talk to the guys who I talk to, we're all, there's not very much discussion about whether, what to do at this point. It's all pretty clear. So we need to have data transparency so people understand what the data says and why we're saying these things. And it has to be pretty, and the expert should present a full set of data. It shouldn't be the head of your investment bank saying, we think that this is better than that. It should be a scientist who has access to the data and the complete data set, not sort of slowly releasing data that's helps their stock price, which is what we're seeing a lot right now. And we have to recruit a lot of new leaders in some of our institutions, sadly, especially the CDC really let us down. And that was happening already in May when I wrote this, unfortunately. Then we have we have a really fractured health infrastructure. We've always had that problem, right? Everyone goes to slightly different areas, and so and we don't have anything that's really designed for pandemic outbreak. We're pretty good at maintaining. If you got a pathogen that's in control like the flu or in control like pneumonia, and don't have a big outbreak, our existing infrastructure is pretty good for that. But where we're falling down with COVID is we got to have a fast infrastructure right now that's ready for outbreaks, ready all over the country simultaneously, ready to go, and we don't have that kind of infrastructure. So that has to be redone, especially with real-time testing, real-time capabilities. We have to have earlier detection systems, earlier testing and quarantining, and then we have to be able to rapidly flex the infrastructure to be ready for a pandemic, because this is not going to be our first pandemic, right? We're going to have another one. I mean, we had 1,371 epidemics breaking out in different parts of the world since 2007. So the chance that we, aren't going to get another pandemic like this in the next 10 years is really low. So any investment we make right now is going to pay off. And then the last point is, right now we're being, forced into, it's going to be either health or the economy. You can choose either one or the other. And the truth is that, if you think about the interventions we got, which is PPE and mask wearing, you don't have to shut down the economy to do that. You can wear a mask and still, pay a credit card bill or go out and shop. That's possible to do. And so it's not that we have to choose between one or the other. And in fact, if we don't get this health thing under control, we're never going to get our economy back again. So you got to get the health thing back under control, and then you can move forward in the economy. And it's not really a stimulus package. I keep talking about the stimulus package, this and that. It's not. We're just trying to be able to mothball what we got to preserve it so that when the thing does pass through, and we think that's probably going to be another 18 months, sadly, and it's probably going to cost us $6 trillion a year to pay for this. But it's better than shutting everything down and having lots of deaths. That's for sure. Which happens when you're out of control in a pandemic. That's what we need to get to.
We've got
Fred,
about
I don't think you have to get political, because when it comes to that column on the right,
Yeah,
we are doing exactly none of those things now.
that's sad.
You know,
That's what's
you
so
know,
depressing to me. Exactly. I know. We can't seem to pass the fiscal stimulus in the Congress. I just can't believe that. I mean, I don't know what the heck they're waiting for. You talk to, well, I know what's happening. So what part of the issue is that there's some people who are saying, look at the stock market. It's a V-shaped recovery. You know, we went down, we're coming back up again. So we don't need any of the stimulus stuff. If we stimulate, we're going to have inflation. Well, that's the stock market. The real economy isn't doing that. And if you talk to literally any economist on the planet, they're going to tell you, no, you need to put some money into that economy, or you're going to have permanent disruption and permanent scarring to your economy, because you're going to have to restart it somehow, and or you can just preserve it as it is. And
well, you could pay now or pay later is more or less the situation, right?
And you pay a lot more later, trust me, because I've had to
Yeah.
rebuild economies after a pandemic's gone through, and it's you start from nothing. And right now we're starting from a lot, right? So we got $21 trillion to work with. So let's not ruin that.
Well, and it strikes me that the countries that have gotten this really under control, I mean, yes, they're smaller than us, they're more homogenous than us, but it seems like the key to this thing has been widespread testing, like testing, and then contact tracing of people who either have it or have been exposed, and then a strict quarantine for those people who either have it or have been exposed, with financial compensation to get them through that time of quarantine. They figure out, okay, you've been exposed, but you're not going to get it, so here's 3 weeks pay. I mean, is that really that hard to do? I don't think so. And it seems like those are the countries that really have it under control, have done those three things.
And China's actually going to grow 2% this year on GDP. They're the only economy that's going to make that happen, but they're actually going to grow 2% this year. And so this is not rocket science. It is basic, blocking and tackling of health, of public health. And we just stumbled early on, and then we never really caught up. We stumbled with the testing early on. We never got in front of the virus, and and since then we've just had a challenge. And we also have miscategorized it. We kept putting it in the flu bucket, and it just isn't the flu. And so all of the people who we had with expertise in the CDC and said they put it in that center of the CDC, and that just wasn't appropriate. We had a much higher death rate, much higher transmission rates. It wasn't seasonal, didn't have a vaccine attached. I mean, there are a whole bunch of problems with the way we assigned the authority for this.
We have about 2 minutes left. What can we say in the final 2 minutes?
Be careful. It's starting. What I said a couple weeks ago. If you want to do some stuff, do it this week. Don't wait until November. Well, it's November now, and just be really careful, because this thing is out there. It's looking for kindling, and if you're just let your guard down a little bit, it's going to find you, and it may not hurt you, but it will go through your family fast. I mean, we're talking about, if you're married, 76% attack rate. If you've got kids, 26% attack rate. And generally it moves from children. Now we're seeing after about a 2-week period to the adults, and then sadly in about 3 weeks to the next generation, which is the grandparents and older people.
And rethink those holiday parties.
Please,
Probably a very bad idea, right?
Yeah, I mean, my wife and we usually have 40 people come to dinner for Thanksgiving. This year, it's just her and I and the dog. Yeah, we got a 36-pound turkey, so we'll send some out after.
That'll make the dog happy, right? So,
Yeah, right.
The dog will have a field
Plenty
day.
of leftovers for the dog in the freezer. That's right.
all right, we're gonna have to leave it at that, because Dave's got a hard stop at 3:00 with another show. So take him out there, Matt.
All right. Well, once again, this has been our very own Dr. Doom, epidemiologist Fred Brown. Fred, what's your web address again?
FredBrown.com. Come on, stop by. Great to have you. And you can see everything we've done with Mike and the team, and Matt and the team on that site.
All right. Well, thanks to Fred. Thanks to all our guests on the M2Techcast today. We'll be back again next Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Until then, this is Matt Roush.
And Mike Brennan. And
you've been watching the M2Techcast at mitechnews.tv.
Hey, that vaccine registry would be really exciting to talk to that person.
Thanks for listening to M2.